This is SynthWorld, and you are listening with DJ Nomad. I am here, so excited to be here with all-around electronic artist, awesome dude, Darksynth kind of guy, Alex, aka Alex. Thanks for being here.
What's up?
You kind of set the stage that you're from the UK, and I know you live in Scotland at the moment. But like, just as a backdrop to who you are you from Scotland? You know, have you always lived there?
Yeah, for sure. Born and bred. But I would like to go travel or stay, or I do travel, but I mean, like, stay somewhere else for a longer period of time. I think the longest I've stayed in the States was for 1 month, but out in LA. But that was a while ago. But yeah, no, I've always been in Scotland, really. I've always been based here.
I always find like the genesis kind of moment of people's careers or their whole catalogs and what they do really interesting. So I try to peel back people all the way to like their first deep moment with music. Do you remember that at all? Like when you were a kid, maybe?
It was just kind of weird because I didn't have much of an interest in music as much, because I didn't really feel like I was capable of, performing it or doing anything with it. And then one day, like, I saw the coverage for Daft Punk's Alive 2007 show, and I was like, "Holy, like this is so like interesting and so out there and so different." And like discovering that group for the first, or that duo for the first time, I was just like, "Whoa, this is like something that's magical, mythical," and like it kind of really raised my eyebrow a lot. So I was like, this is something that's just, that's, so you don't have to be, in a band or a singer-songwriter or be a traditional sort of artist. In that sense, you could really, do whatever you want, because there's these two dudes with like, or these two robots, with like, on stage, with the whole like, just this insane sound, that borrowed all kinds of, influences and styles. And like, 1 minute it was kind of old school kind of house. And then and then it got more kind of almost industrial with like that rolling and scratching, like that, that, I can't do it. But, and then you have like the acid kind of sound as well. And then you have, there's just like a melting pot of styles. And I'm like, that, I guess that was kind of the point where I was like, okay, so I kind of, I can actually, you can actually do something like this. And there's more to music than just, the traditional sense or even the classical sense. I did actually get a lot of shit in school from like, from classmates that were like, kind of like almost, I don't want to say disapproving, but they kind of thought the whole kind of electronics music world was just like silly, I guess. And like, I kind of got a bit of like weird kind of, I don't know. To look back, it's kind of funny, but I'm like, whatever. Like, I think I'm glad. I'm really glad that I pursued music. Yeah.
I want to just kind of touch on, you mentioned like your interest in metal music. I could tell that for sure. So I'm just wondering, like, why do you think that you're so drawn to that kind of like, existentially haunting, really high energy themes that your music explores?
I guess it's like therapy.
Yeah. Sure.
It's like therapy is part therapy. It's like, I don't know. I guess when I sit around like working on ideas, it's like, I guess you just have to feel, I guess I have to feel it, and like, whatever comes out, what feels the best. And then I kind of get drawn into that. Like, I don't know how to describe it very well, but, I think it kind of, I guess, I'm someone that maybe, I don't know, feels very deeply about like, or even just emotions in general, like, and I think, I don't know how to put this like properly, but I think, I don't know, like it kind of helps. Yeah, I guess back to the whole therapy sense, it kind of helps like kind of answer that sometimes, like when you kind of like get into that really heavy kind of sounds, and you kind of, vibe with it or jam with it or like produce it, I guess. And, you kind of get into that darker kind of side or heavier side. It really just kind of alleviates things like a painkiller,
Sure.
or just it helps kind of express your soul, I guess to
Yeah.
put it more metaphorically. But whether it's just listening to music that's really dark, that's just another, that's why I guess I feel like that's why a lot of the alternative scene is so popular, because it's just a way to like let off that steam, or like answer that part of their mind or their soul or whatever.
And it's not afraid to
maybe
lean
they
into
know.
it, It's not afraid to express that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, totally. Like I guess like that's why punk is like so punk. So
So rad, man.
like that's yeah. So it's like it just answers that kind of itch that you can't quite scratch.
That's actually a great segue, though, to how you got into making music. You mentioned an apprenticeship where you're able to get your first DAW. Can you maybe, as succinctly as you can, put together how you got from not a music producer to becoming what you are now?
I always wanted to do music, but I didn't actually get accepted in music college. I did apply, and it was like the worst interview ever. Like I remember the guy like turning around. He was like, we're not going to be sitting here making music all day. And I'm like, oh no, that's why I'm here. So it's like, I don't know. It just felt like there was a lot of pushback, I guess, from the universe or whatever it was. I don't even maybe not the universe, but just I guess it's the educational system. I did a course in music business, and it was my aunt that had like nudged me to get into that, because she's like, oh yeah, there's this cool thing happening, and it was basically like an old music shop in Edinburgh called Red Dog, and below the music shop there was like a little college, like this tiny little college with like its own little recording studio and stuff. And then on that, yeah, like I met Rachel, who sang on Akuma eventually. Like we kind of she actually like was basically or like I was basically like tasked to audition other artists. I was taking the role of like a label or like a manager
Okay.
to basically get artists on board of this course, and like do like their promotion, do the artwork, do like a music video for them. Like it was do all these things like of what a label would do or a manager would do as part of a label. And it was a record label actually that ran the course called Circular Records, I believe. Anyway, very small label, I think, but maybe I'm wrong. But I think, I don't think the label's around anymore. But anyway, so I kind of worked on that for like a year, and I met some cool people through that, I guess. And then, the money that I made from that, because it was a paid apprenticeship, and I used that to buy Ableton Live, and that's how I started to mess around with music, was through that.
That's a great lead into you in general, because your ability to like lean into sounds and themes from other styles of music while kind of sticking to that like more heavy, serious style. So like, I mean, I just listening through, I heard a bunch of stuff from like classical music, from heavy metal, hip hop, drum and bass, disco. I mean, we even mentioned dubstep. I feel like I could hear some of that stuff too.
Yeah.
Like, it's so amazing. I'm just wondering, like, do you dabble like that intentionally, or do you just kind of organically stumble into that?
So I would say, like, I think my sort of mantra now is like chaos is the best producer.
Yeah, sure.
Like that's kind of like my whole thing now. Like I think there was points though where I did sort of go on or try like a set path of like production of like, okay, we're going to try and sound like this. But I always kind of, the chaos kind of entered the chat essentially and became, something else. Yeah, it just always kind of took me elsewhere, I guess, So I kind of, I guess I go towards the organic side of that.
Is there anybody you in your life that you maybe want to give a shout out to real quick of that kind of got you going down that path with the heavier, music in general?
Well, I suppose I owe so much to Tokyo. Like, I really do. Tokyo Rose, because like Akuma wouldn't really happen without him, because like he got in touch after Blood Club came out, or sometime after Blood Club came out, and he said, I really like what you're doing, I'd love to work on a track that's similar to what you've just done, and then that track became 2 tracks, and then 3 tracks, and then it became an album, and then that became Akuma. So that kind of birthed that whole next kind of direction, I guess, I was going in, or continue that direction I was going in, but on a larger scale, you know. And it was the first album I properly done, because that Blood Club at that time was an EP, so it was the first proper album I ever worked on. So I owe a lot to his kind of, you know, well, even just like getting in touch, you know, like that was like what ignited that whole thing, you know. And I guess it evolved that character a little bit more as well. Like the mascot, I guess, really solidified it. You know, it was kind of like using some of his identity with the sort of, you know, the Tokyo sort of Yakuza kind of, you know, influence in like some of his work, you know, and kind of having that as a marriage with the sort of strange dark fantasy kind of aesthetic. I owe a lot to Tokyo, you know, for sure, and I owe a lot to Rachel as well. You know, like back, you know, when I first started out, you know, like it was very hard to find a vocalist that would work on anything that I would do, and she really was like the first person I ever worked with vocally. So, you know, I'm really thankful that she lended her talent.
Honestly, that's another really amazing thing about your catalog is just all of these incredible artists that you've collaborated with. I mean, just astonishing. So, you know, on some level, it makes more sense to ask you about who you haven't collaborated with. That's the question I have for you is like who, maybe stick to maybe just one or two artists, but who are you kind of like itching to collaborate with that you have yet to do so?
Yeah, that's a really good question. That's a really, really good question. And I've sent so many emails to like to artists that I've never heard back from. That are kind of like,
Yeah.
But that happens, you know. That's fine. But oh God, you know, it's really sad. Actually, it's really sad though because he's no longer with us. But it would have been Starcadian. You know, he was really, really cool. Really, really awesome guy. Really talented singer, and I'm still absolutely devastated. You know that I learned that he sadly is no longer with us. But I would have really loved to collaborate with that guy. Like he was insane, and seen him live in London as well. Like that was something else, you know. I do listen to a lot of Boy Harsher, so I'd love to collaborate with them. That would be really cool.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just another sad, tough reminder about how fragile life is, right? So,
Yeah, for sure.
and how quickly it can be taken from you. So, you know, live with intent, and kind of at least trying my best to piggyback off that. um, Setting the scene, though, I think I've always really loved artists that are kind of like either full on or in their heart to some level are concept artists who really like you do lean into an aesthetic, a look, a persona, and a style. Even if that varies and changes, just I love that in general, and I think you get a lot of that from your music. And I I don't know, I don't notice a ton of artists who really like to have like intros and outros and interludes in their albums. And you have a pretty fair amount of that from what I've seen, which I love. I feel like that really sets like the sonic scene for an EP, an album, whatever the release is. So, can you maybe just speak if you feel it is important to the importance of those kinds of tracks?
So like interludes and stuff. Yeah, I guess there's no right or wrong way to do them. I guess it's like it can be like a segue into something else, or it could just be its own little thing. Where it's like you kind of get to give yourself an excuse to sort of experiment with something a bit more, just I don't know, like more soundscapey, more soundtrack esque, more like a part of it, like an OST in a way, you know.
Yep.
And I think it's kind of healthy, I guess, as part of an album. Sometimes not saying it's necessary, but because like a lot of people, like for example, like the new Skrillex record, like that's like every track just leads into the next track. With like a DJ voice, or like not DJ voice, like an announcer, like a wrestler, like a WWE like announcer. You know, it's like kind of has that kind of aspect to it. But yeah, like I think interludes can be really interesting. It kind of helps in a way to write things as if it were a movie. You know, I
Yeah,
would say.
I think that's a great analogy. I really do. You talk about telling a story, right? But sonically, um,
Yeah.
I think that's a fantastic metaphor, and you do such a great job sampling. I have a question about sampling for you, but you mentioned OSTs, and so I don't want to leave that topic before we go too far away, and my brain can't come back to it. Which is that I want to ask you. I mean, like your music is just. I feel like, especially the sound design element of your music is so ripe for doing the scores for films or for television or video games. Do you have any experience doing that, and if not, do you have interest in doing that?
So I've done a score pro bono for a short film. Oh my God, I should know the name of this film. I think it's called. It's on my Instagram, but it's basically a art house kind of film, I guess, or short film, I should say. It was through a friend of one of the, like, it was a staff member who was a friend at a venue I used to DJ at, and his friends were directors, and they do a lot of music videos for bands in Manchester, I believe. So they reached out to me, I guess, through this guy because he knew what I was doing, I guess, and yeah, I did like a little score for this film. With games, a company called Cloudhead, I believe, reached out, and I think they had worked with Valve, but they wanted to do a. It was for their game. They wanted to license Rivals with Paraglove for. It was for a game called Pistol Whip, I believe, Pistol Whip, and it was like a cyberpunk DLC or something, like a John Wick type of level or something that they had. And they wanted Rivals, but then eventually they just, like, for whatever reason, they had like a 180 in their department in terms of what they wanted. So I guess that never happened. But no, and games has been a difficult one because I've not really had any like solid successes with that.
You have throughout a lot of your music, if not, certainly a good chunk of it, you have like some really awesome samples that you use. Um, so I'm wondering, like, I guess I'll keep it to like one. What's your best like one tip for someone who, artist, DJ, whatever? Like, what's your one good tip for like picking a good sample?
Patience.
Okay, I
Lots of
like that.
patience.
Taking your time
Because it's
picking it, you
like,
mean?
well, like, just, I guess, like, if you, wherever you're sourcing your samples from, like, just, yeah, be patient with what you think would sound cool. People don't really think about the process to just acquire like the depths that you have to go just to find the right sample, if that makes sense.
We've dove super deep into the side of you that is Alex and your music and everything, and I want to just pull us out for just a sec here and for a moment before we finish the rest of the interview and just ask about the Alex that isn't a music producer. Um, I'm just curious, like, what if I were to bump into you on a random Wednesday afternoon and you weren't making music, what will we find you doing? And, is your personal life as, kind of intense as maybe your music suggests?
And that's classified. I'm joking.
Classified.
No, no. I mean, you probably see me at like a noodle bar slurping on some pad thai or something.
Ooh, cool. Okay. Love a good pad thai.
Yeah, yeah. It's like my new favorite thing. Or I'm quite a gamer as well. I do like to play like especially right now, like a lot of classic games. I've been delving back into Devil May Cry, like all the kind of
Oh, cool.
older 2000s kind of stuff, like PlayStation 2 era, Y2K kind of stuff. What else I've been up to? I kind of dabble in like try to figure out how to do 3D artwork as well. I kind of like
Cool.
try to figure out how to do that. But it's definitely like still a whole learning curve. So I'm very, very much in the infancy of that.
So you mentioned movies, and film and movies. Movies have always been like a big influence for me. I love that stuff, way more than television. And so I know it's gonna be hard, but I want to see if you can just pick one, if you had to, your favorite kind of like throwback 80s, 90s, maybe early 2000s movie that you draw inspiration from.
Man, I think like originally, I'll probably have to go and say Drive because it was Drive. Drive was a big influence at one point.
Okay. Yeah.
I was going to say Blade Runner, but Drive um, at one point. I actually ended up meeting Johnny Jewel not too long ago, back in November of last year, which was cool. He gave me some free records. But,
Oh, very cool. Nice.
that was cool. But yeah, I'd probably say Drive, to be honest. There was something about Drive that was really cool or really interesting. Like there was that kind of mix of like indie electronic meets this kind of ambient euphoria, I guess, like, or euphoric kind of ambience. There was just something about that was really like inspiring and really cool. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I can't get through this interview at all without talking about your relationship with Tokyo Rose. And we've already kind of briefly touched on that, but if you can, just maybe give like a brief description of maybe how you met Tokyo Rose, and then if you can talk about Payback. I mean, I think it's just an EP if I'm not mistaken, but it's awesome, and I think it is also emblematic of why you guys make such a great combo.
So I guess like so yeah, he reached out to me first after Blood Club, and then we just like it was very much like 90% online type of like interactions and relationships, and we would just send ideas back and forth. Yeah, I guess it's like one of the few or rare partnerships where it's like we're just really on the same page. We really just click. We really just like we're quite easy with like ideas and stuff. We don't really we sometimes I guess we can be quite like specific about what we want as well, but which is also really cool. And yeah, like eventually we met up at one of the no actually no it was I was staying at Micah's place in New York when she used to live there, and we'd also booked to go see Danger live in the Knitting Factory in Brooklyn. So
Oh, Danger, nice.
I was on like a ton of medication and just to feel alive, and then zipped over to and had a ride to Brooklyn to the Knitting Factory to go see Danger, because it's like this is Danger we're talking about here. Also a massive influence on our sound, but we went there. We actually ended up meeting him behind closed doors, like very briefly. We gave him a USB with Akuma 2 on it.
Oh, heck
he was
yeah,
like, I'll
that's
listen
so
to this
cool.
for sure. And then like, cool. Because we really, really badly wanted to collab with him, even though I guess that's not really his style, but
Yeah,
that was really cool.
I just saw about 3 weeks ago or so, maybe a month ago, I saw George Clanton live. I'm guessing you might know who that is.
Yeah.
Yeah, a great show, and it was, I wouldn't go as far as to say there was a mosh pit, but it was closer. It was fairly close to that, and
Yeah.
you're also in that space where you're in that weird crossover of electronic music and again those like heavy metal kind of influences that people just get going. The pits form, people get going crazy. Yeah, I'm sure that was a pretty amazing experience to see.
Yeah, there's definitely like this nod of approval from like the alternative scene, with music, like
Totally.
where there's like metal or like rave, like there was like when I did my show in
There's
Germany.
overlap with rave culture, totally. So you mentioned Ableton. Real quick, are you still using Ableton?
Always, yeah, it's my favorite. It's the one.
So speaking of favorites, I'm gonna keep you to one here. I know it's tough. Or maybe we'll do one or two. You mentioned how it sounds like a lot of your the beginning of your production career, your catalog, is VSTs.
Yeah.
Are you still? So what are your like favorite VSTs? And if you've dabbled in the analog and gotten some actual hardware synths, maybe one of your favorites of those as well to use.
So VSTs, yeah, like man, like I think I really like Phase Plant. That's
Okay.
really, really cool VST. They call it the Serum Killer, but Serum 2 just dropped very recently.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, Phase Plant's awesome because it's like you can do so much with that. You can make percussion instruments if you want, but for like I'd say its strong suit is like bass design and really strong leads and stuff. But even just for like sound design, it's insane.
Now, is that what you use? Because I feel like there's so many things I could think of in your music that I think you're known for, but easily, if not the most, one of the most are those gritty bass lines, right? What is that? What you use to get most of those?
So for like the acid sound, I have I have a Behringer TD3 MO, or it's basically like it's all in black. It's black and red. It's called like red lights. It's very like it looks very evil. I love it. But it's like it's a 303. It's a 303 clone of the Devilfish mod, I believe. That was like a old. It was like a dude in Australia that people would mail, like the Prodigy, for example, they would mail their 303s to this guy in a garage in Australia, and he would like mod the 303 with all like this extra. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what he added to it, but it made it more aggressive sounding, or the possibility it would make it more optionally aggressive essentially than what already was. So I have like the Behringer clone of that, which is like very nice, and
Very cool.
that's like yeah, that's like the physical, one of the physical things I have. A lot of the rest of it is just like MIDI controllers. I have like I guess I could get to those in a sec, but yeah, like VST wise, for like those gritty bass lines, yeah, like Phase Plant, Serum, what's the other ones? Dex was cool actually for like that old kind of Yamaha like bass kind of like sound.
Okay.
I used to use Tyrell, not really anymore, but Tyrell was one of them. Especially for a cult on Blood Club, I used that a lot.
Do you play other, do you play guitar, drums? Do you do any other instruments or anything like that? Obviously, you play synthesizer and maybe, keyboard or something like that, but yeah.
Yeah, honestly, it's like I don't. So when I didn't really come from the background of traditional musicians, so like a lot of it was
Right.
like self-taught,
Yeah.
experimentation really. So I don't really play guitar or drums even. I'm making a mess around with it, but it would be nice though to actually to delve into that a lot more and
Sure.
commit to learning an instrument properly. Because it's like I guess I'm kind of coming into the music world with like a different path, I guess, with like the digital side of it, and the more like electronic side of it as well, and then like maybe going to the coming full circle with like more traditional instruments would be nice.
I just kind of want to know because you've been in this for a little while now, and you've probably seen a lot of changes over the last decade, basically, of music production and whatnot. How would you yeah, how would you describe in your mind what is like a realistic and but like much healthier and more like equitable kind of landing zone for the music industry to come to? Because I think most people want that, not the people in charge, unfortunately. But yeah, how would you describe like what the landscape looks like in a much healthier future?
In terms of people being or artists being paid enough would be great. I think. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess it's like a double-edged sword with streaming services because on one hand, like it kind of opens up the world to like artists that typically wouldn't even be heard. But at the
Right.
same time, it's like there's a cost to that, I guess, with these companies. Where I do think there's a massive kind of issue with pay. Um, I'm not sure if you're aware of Damien Keys. He's a guy that works. He's a YouTuber, I guess, but he's primarily he works in the music industry, helping a lot of artists or up and coming artists. Building them up essentially. I guess kind of similar to what I did in my apprenticeship, but on steroids.
Okay. I've never heard
So
of him before.
he sort of came to the conclusion that, for artists to really survive right now, or find it to be a career path, or to prosper essentially, is a lot of these streaming services should be charging. I think should be paying out 1 cent per stream. So that would really make things a lot healthier economically anyway. So that was a really interesting point. So I do think
Sure.
that would help a lot for sure. And it definitely evens the playing field at least a little bit. I'm not saying it's a massive fix, but
And so actually, you know what? That kind of does lead me to this next question, honestly, which is about the Y2K era. And I feel like, tell me if maybe you don't see it this way, but I feel like the like end of the 90s and like the early 2000s were like really the beginning of so many things, at least I can say in the United States. I bet this is probably true of at least Western Europe, um, that kind of set in motion to some of the issues that we are seeing now come to home to roost, if you will, in terms of that, like just in terms of that gluttonous behavior, and idealizing wealth and glamour and kind of like really hollow, shallow things and stuff like that. I just think a lot of that stuff's coming home to roost right now. So I'm curious, you just released last year, I think a little bit less than a year ago, Hyper Reality, which I absolutely loved. And I know this era was an influence of that. Can you just speak to that album and why that whole atmosphere, that whole zeitgeist it just, to me, it feels so relevant right now.
Like, I guess in terms of the sound, like I really love that, just that feeling you get from it. It's very much like a relief. It's like a
Yeah,
painkiller. It kind of has this like
it's like rebellion
really,
and love all in one.
yeah, yeah. It has this really like I don't know, like a higher effect or something, that you just get from it, and it takes you back to a place where it's just like things were a bit more, a little bit simpler, I guess, and even just like even when you talk about like video games and stuff, like a PlayStation, right?
Yep.
You just put the game in, and the game was done, and there was no microtransactions, there was no
No
there was no
squeezing you
bloatware.
for
It's just it just was
everything.
just you just put in there, and you just kind of forgot about the world for a bit, and it kind of has that element to it. But in terms of like the reason how it came to be, it was actually for Micah. It was supposed to be like an album for her brand, for her universe essentially, and it was like we kind of delved into the inspirations for it and like what it could be. And she really liked what I was doing with the Mexu Junkie albums with like the drum and bass, this Y2K kind of direction. So she wanted like something that was more Vogue, that was more in the same like the same era, but Vogue, like kind of catwalk kind of esque, kind of like fashion show
Oh, okay.
meets like that kind of era as well.
Yeah.
With like also with heavy Matrix influences. The Matrix from the the Matrix. So
Hell yeah.
like that's, and I think I was watching a YouTube documentary on the Matrix, and the term hyperreality came up, and I thought it was a cool title as well, but it kind of encapsulated a lot of that whole era as well, and like the whole like millennium bug thing maybe as well. That was cool.
It seems like you're at the end of kind of at the end of an era on some level, and
Mm-hmm.
a turning of the page is what is next, right? What's necessary here, and it doesn't mean you have to abandon what you've done or anything, but yeah, I mean that's my next question is, you're on this synthetic, gritty, corroded highway that is Alex, right? I think that's exactly how I would describe it. It's awesome. It's been a fun journey, and I'm wondering what's the next stop.
Yeah, this is the thing. Like I've been trying to figure that one out.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope that I can grow it, a lot more. I guess somehow there's ideas. there's lots of ideas, but it's like just sort of figuring out where to go next, and maybe even aesthetically as well. Like how do I move forward with that? The imagination is your limit, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it opens up, I think, for you to, focus on um, other area, focus on things more, if you will, that you want to focus on, and then experiment and expand off of areas even further. It's, yeah, you couldn't agree more. And I wish I could keep going with you all day, because it's been such a fun conversation, and I appreciate all of your time. But I am at the end of my questions list here, with one more left, actually. And that is for all my Synthwave listeners. Again, we are with Alex, electronic producer, kind of in the heavier, darker side of things, if you will, side of the spectrum. Really great chatting here. And Alex, where can the SynthWorld listeners go to get more of you in their life?
I would say whatisalex.com is the nexus for all that. I would say you can sign up to the newsletter. You can get a free album with that. Sign up as well. But yeah, everything is there essentially. You can get vinyls. You can get hoodies, you can get freebies, yeah, all sorts. And that's just like a giant, massive landmark to everything myself. But yeah, whatisalex.com.
There you go. So if you want to find out what is Alex, the deep kind of corroded, as I used earlier, artist and haunted producer that touches so many parts of me. It means a lot for you to have come on the show. I appreciate all the time. I don't know how in the world I'm going to edit this down for my normal size show. I'll have to figure out something. Who knows? Maybe I'll make it a 2-shower. That's happened before. But I just appreciate your time, and I hope, at minimum, you had a good time and you were able to. There's some validation in knowing that your music is really inspiring and it moves. It moves not just me. There's tons of people who dig this music and really appreciate that you make it. So.
Yeah, well, I really needed to hear that. That was awesome because I've been like in a bit of a, I guess, exhausted state lately. So it's really nice to hear, and also get reminded of this as well because it's I guess when you're on the other end of the screen or the other side of things, it's just like I guess it can be silence almost. So it's like I guess I can forget a lot sometimes. So it's nice to be reminded every once in a while.
I think as a fan would be really cool. You've teased it a little bit with the work with Megan. Is you've just so awesomely kind of sonically exemplified some of the dark things, the darkest feelings and emotions and energy in life, right? And I think it'd be really cool to see you just even for a second dabble in the light for a moment, if you will. And heck, even if you can meld some of the light with the dark, as like some metal bands do, for example, I think that could be a really interesting evolution in who you are as a person, and the storyline, the especially like the cyberpunk theme and the punk themes, which a lot of which have to do with rebellion and kind of independence and all this stuff, right? But I feel like that's the kind of like the arc of that goes from like darkness and kind of frustration and angst to light and patience and kind of more sublime feelings, right? And so
like a transcendence essentially, exactly. Kind of like Johnny Cash at the end of his life.
Yes, totally. And I will certainly keep SynthWorld listeners up to date, playing your new music, and who knows, maybe in a year's time or something, we'll do like a catch up episode and see where you're at, see what's changed. So again, I just want to thank you real quick. Appreciate your time. Again, that was Alex, Alex, and you can find him at What Is Alex on Instagram and on his website, What Is Alex. Amazing electronic producer, the Dark Prince, Dark King of Synthwave, if you will. And thanks again for coming. And till next time, stay retro.
Take it easy.